10:12. We're going to call the Finance Committee for the IDA open.
And presentation.
All right. Morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Chris Stevens. I'm the Senior Audit Manager with SK Company. And I'm here to present the audit for the IDA. You should have two documents for the IDA. One to say report to the Board of Directors, smaller package, and then one that says financial statements and independent auditors report. We'll start with the one that says report to the Board of Directors. Now, this particular report is a report that's required under professional standards to generally go over the general results of the audit and provide some information that you should be aware of. Related to the qualitative aspects of accounting practices, management is responsible for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies. Significant accounting policies used by the IDA are described in Note 8 of the financial statements. There are no new accounting policies adopted in the current fiscal year, and the application of existing policies did not change year over year. We noted no transactions entered into by the IDA that lacked authoritative guidance or consensus, and all significant transactions appeared to be recorded in the proper accounting period. All financial statements do include accounting estimates. They are an integral part in preparing financial statements. Certain estimates can be particularly sensitive to the financial statements. We do highlight probably the most expensive, most significant estimate for the IDA, and that's really related to the estimated value of the land held in development, which was based on an appraisal by a third-party appraisal company. We evaluate the key factors assumptions and believe the estimates reasonable given the circumstances. Difficulties encountered in performing the audit, we're happy to report that we did not encounter any significant difficulties during the audit process. Disagreements with management, we're also happy to report we did not have any disagreements with management related to accounting or auditing matters during the audit. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements. Under professional standards, we are required to accumulate all known and likely misstatements that we identify as part of our audit and communicate those to proper level of management unless they're clearly trivial. And we also report those significant findings to you. There were no such misstatements identified during the current year audit. Management's representation. We have requested certain representations from management, and a letter they will sign and provide to us. It will be dated same date of the auditor's report. That letter just essentially confirms all the assertions that they provided to us during the audit process, as well as the fact that they consider all the information they provided to us complete and accurate. Management's consultation with other independent accountants. If management reached out to a third-party accounting firm related to an accounting or audit matter, that firm under professional standards is required to communicate to us, and we're required to report those communications to you. Best of our knowledge, there have been no consultations with other third-party accountants. Section related to other matters, we do highlight the fact that Government Accounting Standards Board requires something called the management discussion analysis to be concluded for financial statements that has been omitted from the financial statements. That is not something we would audit if it was there, so it's lack of, so the fact that it's not there doesn't impact our audit opinion. We were also engaged to report on the schedule of supplemental information, straight leases. That's information that's required by New York State to accompany the financial statements. We did subject that to auditing procedures, as well as some additional procedures required. We believe that information is fairly stated in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. And we're not engaged to report on the agency's annual report, which you'll be looking at today. That's the Paris report required by New York State. Our responsibility under professional standards is to read it to ensure that it's not materially inconsistent with information we gathered either in the financial statements themselves or during our audit. We do not issue an opinion on it. So that is the report to the board. Are there any questions? Okay. All right. So the next report we'll go over is the financial statements. We'll start on page 1. So the first three pages for the IDA of this report are our auditor's report. It includes our opinion as well as provides, some additional information related to, our responsibilities and management's responsibilities. The top of the first page provides our opinion. As our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all mature respects the financial position of the authority as of December 31st, 2024 and 2023, and the changes in its financial position and its cash flows, in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That's what we would call an unmodified or a clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance you can get under an audit. Basis for opinion, we did perform our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America, as well as those standards applicable under government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. Responsibilities and management, while we did assist with the preparation of these financial statements, management is responsible for these financial statements. They're responsible for the fair presentation in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, as well as implementing a system of internal controls that allows the preparation of financial statements to be free from material misstatement or error. Our responsibility under auditors, I mean, there's a lot of information here. I'm not going to read this word for word for you. Certainly read it. To summarize, our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance that your financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but it's not absolute assurance. We do not look at every transaction. An audit is a test via sampling, so there is always a chance that something could have been overlooked or not included in our test work that could have led to a misstatement of financial statements. Required supplementary information. There is some information that's included with the, this is related to your management discussion analysis, and that's generally what they call required supplementary information that government audit standards, government accounting standards board wants to accompany the financial statements. That particular information is not included in the financial statements. It's not something that we would audit if it was, so the fact that it's missing does not impact our opinion on the audit. On the top of page 3, the financial statements do include supplementary information, which is not necessarily required under the government accounting standards board requirements, but is required by New York State. Just information related to the street lease agreements you have with your organizations. We did subject that information was subjected to audit procedures performed during the audit, well as some additional audit procedures, including reconciling to underlying accounting records, and that we believe that information is fairly stated in all material specs in relation to the basic financial statements taken as a whole. Other information, this section just refers to our consideration of your annual report. We do read it to make sure that it is materially consistent with the financial statements as well as information gathered during our audit. However, we do not issue an opinion on that information. And the last paragraph refers to the government audit standards report, which we will cover at the end of the presentation. Page 4, this is your statement of net position for the IDA. It provides you all the current assets, all the assets of the organization, all the liabilities, as well as the net deficit between the two, which is your net position. You provide a comparative presentation year over year. You can see a increase in cash related to from positive cash flow from operations. On the liability side, you're due to other governments is significantly higher than the prior year, and that's because your annual fee to the city of Troy of $125,000 was not paid till after year end. So that's sitting on the liability at December 31st, 2024. Brings the overall net position of $854,000 at the end of December 31st. Page 5 is your statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in that position. This is the income statement of the organization. It does show you total revenues, operating expenses, on your net income or loss, which is for you, term is titled change in that position. Administrative fees down a little bit. Those can fluctuate year and year based on the number of projects you close as well as the value of the projects. They're generally a set fee percentage of the project amount. Also in the current year, that's slightly lower than past years because you did have a project that was involved with the LDC, so you did share some of the revenue sharing with the LDC in the current year, about $67,000. Total operating expenses down a little bit year over year. Also decrease in professional fees as you had significant expenditures related to geotech investigation of the prior year. economic development, you did have one, grant, which was related to the Capital Region, Transportation Council grant that was approved in this current year, was paid out $25,000. Year over year, your operating loss was consistent, about $14,000 compared to about $11,000 in the prior year. Overall, positive change in that position of just under $28,000, which brings your total net position up to $854,000. Next page, page 6. This is just statement of cash flows. This provides information related to the source and use of cash by the organization in the current year. The year over year, you did provide a positive cash flow from operations of about $116,000. Some proceeds from interest income, which brought your net increase to cash of $158,000 for the current fiscal year. And that little section down the bottom, that just reconciles your operating loss to your net cash provided by operations. Starting on page 7 and going to page 10, these are the accounting policies of the organization. There's been no change year over year related to these policies, and they are considered to be in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Note B on page 10 provides information related to your cash equivalents. You did have approximately $662,000 in cash that was unsecured, so it wasn't covered by FDIC insurance. That was collateralized by the bank. The bank held bonds in your name in excess of that amount to cover that shortfall. Note C describes information related to your land held for development. There was no change in that year over year. Note D just describes several years ago there was a board designation related to the Troy Wayfinder project that still has not been expended. And note E provides some information related to your related party transactions. Biggest provides your services provided by the city of Troy as well. So, you pay $125,000 a year for those services. You do share the board with the CRC, and you do have the revenue sharing agreement with LDC, which, again, you did pay out $67,000 to LDC related to a project under that agreement in the current year. Starting on page 12 is this is what we call the government audit standards report. This is issued whenever we do an audit in accordance with generally government auditing standards. We do report on your internal control over financial reporting. Our consideration of your internal control is to the extent that allows us to plan and perform our audit. We do not test your controls to the degree that allows us to provide an opinion on the effectiveness of your internal controls. However, if we become aware of deficiency in internal control that we consider material weakness or a significant deficiency, we would report that here. We're happy to report we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that are required to be reported under government auditing standards. Also, under government auditing standards, we are required to consider your compliance with laws and regulations that have a direct and material impact on the financial statements. The results of those tests did generate one particular issue in the current year that we did describe in the schedule of findings and questions costs as items 2024-001. And that's on page 14. Essentially what happened here was there was starting in September to the end of December, there were several pilot payments that were received and just were not remitted to the tax authority within the time frame established by New York State law. Under the New York State law, specifically Article 8, Title 11, Section 1964A, pilot payments received by the authority should be remitted to the affected jurisdictions within 30 days of receipt. These amounts were received. It was not a huge amount. It was like $500,000. It was only $35,000. Amount that's material to your financial statements, so we're reporting here. The amounts were received weren't remitted to the tax authorities until March of 2025, so much well beyond the 30-day requirement. The fact is, you could be subject to late payment penalties and interest from the taxing jurisdictions. In addition, the authority could be exposed to possible negation of the allowable under the law. We've made a couple recommendations related to this. We recommend that you establish policies and procedures to strengthen the oversight of the pilot tracking process to ensure that when they're received, they're remitted timely. Also, we recommend that you consider setting up a separate cash account for the pilot payments. That does a couple things. It separates those payments from your cash, because they're not, those are your agency funds. You shouldn't really be intermingling those with your cash accounts. But also, if you had a separate cash account and it had a balance on it in any given period of time, it would be an automatic signal that you have a pilot payment you received in this period. And we also did include, discuss this with Randy, and he did include a response, their response here as well that you can read.
When you say litigation, you mean the city of Troy still on us?
It could be any of the taxing jurisdictions.
Oh, because they weren't, okay.
I
But you
think
don't-
the problem is
If there's a late
money-
fee, you don't charge them for it if it's our fault not paying it, right?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I mean,
If the pilot payment is late, and
if
Because we didn't pay it.
they're late in remitting it to us,
Okay.
then they get charged a late fee, yeah.
but if it's late, if we didn't pay it, and
Well, I think that's what the issue is.
Yeah.
the taxing
Yeah.
jurisdictions could charge
Yeah.
you.
When we collect a late fee, it used to be sent out to the taxing jurisdictions within 30 days. The issue was that just we held on to it a little too long, so.
Not late fee, but in this case, it was just the pilot
Oh, was it the
payment
actual
came
pilot
in.
payment? Okay.
Yeah,
That was a combination of both.
yeah, a combination of both. And so it just didn't get, paid out to the taxing jurisdictions within the 30 days.
oh, I see what you're saying, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And the last few pages of the financial statements, this is the supplemental schedules that are required by New York State law, just provide some information related to the straight lease agreements we have with different projects. Provides information with the project name, the owner's address, as well as the tax exemptions that they are provided, as well as some FTE, information they received, just related to those projects as well.
Again, are you setting up a separate account for pilot payments then?
Well, that was their recommendation, and my response was, it seems like it makes sense, for a couple of reasons. One is keeping separate, the
Right,
normal
yeah.
cash from the pilot payments, but also having it in a separate account, then you know that when money comes in, it's supposed to go right back
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
And the only thing I added to the suggestion was, I would think or hope that there's some technology at the bank or that you could use where there would be an alert set up.
In QuickBooks, you can set up a ticker anytime you receive a revenue in that account, and
Right,
you can have
right.
a
So
corresponding
QuickBooks,
disbursement
we
deadline.
could set it up in QuickBooks, or maybe the bank can set it up with the account where there's an alert that says, hey, this money came in, it needs to go out in 30 days, so. That's the best we could come up with.
So we are setting up a separate account?
I accept that recommendation.
Okay, all right.
I don't know if that requires board action or if that's just an administrative action.
Generally, setting up of accounts and closing accounts is generally board approved.
You can, once we have the full recommendation developed at next board meeting, we could direct the CFO to open the accounts and start using the protocols that you adopt.
Right.
Any other questions?
I know this is a lot of template information for the first few pages, but could you go back to page 2 and to the last paragraph? Just put it in plain English, what it is, the required supplementary information.
That's, generally the, Government Accounting Standards Board has established certain required supplementary information. So information, and that, it's required to accompany the financial statements. That's not a basic part of the financial statements. One of them is management discussion analysis, and then depending on other things the government may have, there might be additional schedules you should have. The MBA, management discussion analysis, just really gives management discussion an opportunity to explain what happened in the organization in the current year and provide information and in context to the financial statement user. Really, as long as it's management discussion, there's also no reason we wouldn't audit it, because it's their judgment, their insight as to what's going on, what the future plans are, stuff like that. Generally, it shows up in, generally the first few pages of the finance statements. It's not, it's more significantly when you have like a school district or a government-wide financial statements with a much larger government, whether it be a county or the city of Troy, I'm sure probably has one. Provides a lot more information, well, it's describing financial statements, which those financial statements, to a layperson, are much more complex and much more, not something that you normally would look at and understand what's going on. You have to have more knowledge behind it, so.
Okay, so it's reasonable that it's not part of what we have.
Yeah, we have a handful of public authorities that don't do it.
Okay.
You're not alone by any stretch of the imagination, so.
Any other questions? I think we need a motion to accept this, right?
Yeah, the motion to, I guess, send this to the full board for approval.
Yeah. Anyone want to make that motion?
Motion.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Need to close this and then open up the CRC financials, right? Motion to close. Seconded by
With Tasha?
Tasha. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it is now 10:33. We're gonna open up the CRC financial.
All right, so in CRC, again, you should have the two individual packages. One is report to the board, one's a financial and an audit report. Start with the report to the board director.
I think we're
As a report.
I have to,
Financial.
here, I'm gonna take the previous ones out of your way, so that helps the clear sheet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Similar to the idea, this particular, is a required communication of the financial standards. One of the qualitative aspects of the accounting practices, management is responsible for selection and use of the accounting policies, appropriate accounting policies. There were no significant changes on to the accounting policies used by the organization in the current year. No new additional policies were adopted, and the application of existing policies were not changed. We noted no transactions initiated by the corporation during the year which lacked authoritative guidance or consensus, and all significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper accounting period. Accounting estimates are integral to the preparation of financial statements, and we do highlight probably the most significant accounting policy estimate here, and that's really related to management's estimate of the deductibility of the working capital loan from the Troy LDC, along with they also pledged sale proceeds from the sale of some of their property held for development. Related to that, and we believe that the factors and assumptions used to develop the estimate were reasonable given the circumstances. We did not encounter any significant difficulties during the audit or have any disputes with management related to accounting or reporting or auditing matters. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements, we are required to accumulate all known and likely misstatements identified during the audit and communicate those to the appropriate level of management. And highlight a couple of adjustments that were proposed during the current year. To you here, there was an adjustment to record accrual unbilled legal fees, also an adjustment related to some administration fees that were inadvertently billed twice during the current fiscal year. Management representation letter, we have requested certain representations from management. In that letter, they confirmed to us all the assertions they made during the audit, as well as confirm that the information they provided to us is complete and accurate. That report date will be changed to match the financial statement report date when the reports are issued. Management's consultation with other independent accountants. We're not aware of any consultation with a third-party accountant by the CRC during the current fiscal year. On the other matters section, again, we highlight the management has not included a management discussion analysis as required by Governmental Accounting Standards Board. The omission of this information does not impact our opinion on the financial statements. We were engaged to report on the schedule of indebtedness, which accompanies the financial statements. That's not information is required by Government Accounting Standards Board requirements, but it's required by New York State. With respect to the supplementary information, we made certain inquiries to management to evaluate the form, content, and methods of preparation, as well as some other procedures under audit, performed in the audit that allow us to express an opinion on an information in our audit opinion. We also were not engaged to report on the agency's annual report. That's the Paris report required by public authorities law. We did review it to ensure that it's not materially inconsistent with the financial statements or information we gathered as part of our audit. That is a report to the Board of Directors. Are there any questions? All right. Okay. Starting at page 1, page 3 is our auditor's report. Top of page 1 lists our audit opinion. We state here that we believe the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the corporation. The changes in the financial position and its cash flows for the years ended. This is what we call an unmodified or clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance you can get. The basis for our opinions, we did perform our audit under our audit standards generally accepted in the United States of America, as well as those standards contained in government audit standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. Responsibility to management for the financial statements. While we did assist with the preparation of the financial statements, management is ultimately responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, and for the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements that are free from material misstatement and error. Our responsibility under as auditors is to plan and perform our audits that allows us to provide reasonable assurance over those financial statements. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, and reasonable assurance. We don't look at every transaction that flows through the organization during the current fiscal year. Required supplemental information, again, we're highlighting the fact that MD&A is not included with the financial statements, but that does not impact our audit opinion. Top of page 3, the supplementary information, that refers to the schedule of indebtedness attached to the back. We did subject that to audit procedures during our audit of the financial statements, as well as some additional procedures during our audit, and that we believe that supplemental information is fairly stated in all material respects in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. The other information section just refers to that we do refer to your annual report to ensure that it's not materially inconsistent with these financial statements or our audit. We do not issue an opinion on it. And the last section refers to our report on the government audit standards, and we'll quickly go over that when we get to it at the end. Starting at page 4, this is your statement in net position for the organization. Let's see, year over year, you did see a decrease in cash. That's from negative cash flow from operations. Year over year, you still have non-current asset related to the loan receivable from the LDC of $215,000, with total assets of $326,000. There were no liabilities at year end. Page 5 is your schedule of revenues, statement of revenue expenses and change in net position. So this is the income statement of the organization. Your revenue from project fees of $4,500, combined with your operating expenses, economic development and grants of $62,000, professional fees of an additional $6,200, brings the net operating expenses to $68,000, or a net operating loss of just under $64,000 for the current fiscal year. And an overall change in net position of, just under negative $60,000 for the year. Brought your net position from $306,000 down to $326,000. During the current fiscal year, page 6, this is just payment of cash flows. This provides information related to your source and use of cash in the current fiscal year. You see your proceeds from project fees offset against payments made for operating expenses brings net cash used in operating activities of $79,000. Did receive some interest in the current year, so your net decrease in cash was $75,000 for the current fiscal year. And that little section down the bottom just reconciles your net operating loss to your net cash flow from operations. Starting at page 7, we're going to the top of page 9 are the note 8 of the financial statements. These represent the accounting policies of the organization. As mentioned in the board report, there are no changes to these policies from the current fiscal year, and they are considered to be in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Note B provides information related to your cash and your depository risk. At December 31st, 2024, all your cash deposits were covered by FDIC insurance. Note C provides us some information related to parties. City provides staff and support without compensation. You do share the board with the Troy IDA. And of course, the information relates to the Troy LDC and the receivable that they owe you for that working capital loan of $213,000. Starting at page 10, this is the government audit center report. You might hear it referenced as a yellow book report. This is a report that's issued when we do an audit in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, government auditing standards, I'm sorry. We report internal control. Our consideration of internal control is the extent that allows us to plan and perform the audit, not to the extent that allows us to issue an opinion on the effectiveness of internal control. However, if we become aware of deficiencies in internal control that are reportable under government audit standards, we report those here. We're happy to report we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that are reportable under government auditing standards. On the top of page 11, we do consider the organization's compliance with laws and regulations that can have a direct and material effect to the financial statements. We would report here any non-compliance we identified. We cannot identify any non-compliance that's reportable under those auditing standards during the current year audit. And that last page is the schedule of indebtedness. This is required by New York State. Shows the activity in the current year of all outstanding state and government debt. These amounts are not general debt of the organization. They're what's called conduit debt. So they're debt that was issued through the organization, but someone else owes the money back, in this case RPI. So you can see the outstanding amounts, the current year payments, as well as current year payments information that is required by New York State. Are there any questions on the financials?
Motion to accept. Motion, second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. All right. With that, it is, thank you again, 10:45, and we're going to start with the IDA meeting.
These are the three ones that should go packet. You were taking that investment. Here's your. I accidentally included the LDCs in the packet.
No, there's one on the back of this, is what you see.
Here's an extra. First off is the approval of minutes from February 21st, 2025 board meeting. we have enough people from February to vote on that?
Albert never.
See the minutes. Are the minutes in here?
I missed one, too.
You did?
Last year, I think. I was on vacation.
I don't have that.
I really like modified.
What's the issue?
Just making sure we have enough people that were at the February meeting to approve the minutes.
Oh, you were here? You were here?
I wasn't,
Oh, you weren't here?
no.
Oh.
I was,
Jeff's not here, so only four of us here that were.
And we need 5 as a,
It's 5. Yeah, so table that, I suppose.
all right.
And, we have the executive director's report.
Okay, so I've been here about a year now, and in the course of that year, I've done a few pilot agreements, learned a few things. I started the process of getting a contract in place with a technology firm that would help us administratively. So I'm going to just report on those 2 things. On the form router contract, my objective was to get that in place and have it operational much sooner, so that it would have helped us in, not just in the application process for applicants that come in, but also particularly with the annual reporting of all of the pilot recipients. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, so Danae had to go through the old way once again, and for purposes of the Paris report this year, had to go out and, basically manually do all those reports, which my objective was to make that easier. Didn't happen. We still need to get that contract in place. Justin and I talked about that. And so, moving forward, we hope that, by this time next year, this will all be resolved. In terms of what I've learned on doing pilot agreements, it made me kind of look a little harder at I don't even know what we refer it to as the uniform
tax exemption policy.
uniform tax exemption policy that is in our bylaws. It's a policy that's pretty old, probably needs to be looked at and updated to better reflect the kind of projects we're doing, but also the way in which we're doing them. And so I'm sort of recommending that is something that gets done this year. I don't know if that's something that like a subcommittee of the board would
Generally,
normally
the governance
do.
committee would work on that and get something to the point where they're comfortable recommending it up to the full board.
Right. So do we have a governance committee?
Yes, you do.
Here we go.
Okay. So who's,
But I think was Sue on it, or Sue Farrell?
I think she was.
Probably.
Yeah.
all right, well, we'll check into who's on the governance committee,
Part
but,
of the organizational resolution we're doing today is going to populate the governance committee.
okay, all right. So,
You've been warned, yeah.
yep, so forewarned that we're gonna convene that committee and try to make some positive changes in that regard.
Are there, like, standards for bylaws for these types of entities, so that we don't start going off?
Yeah, we have examples from all over the state,
Okay.
for uniform tax exemption policies and project review or evaluation policies, which, both of those you're supposed to have, and we have some older, before my time almost, I think, versions that just every now and again, it's good to kind of open them up and revisit them, and I think this exercise would be more of a whole cloth approach to get something contemporary done.
Okay.
The only other thing I had to report on was, I know we talked at the last meeting about doing a cash flow analysis and whether or not we could park more of our cash into an interest-bearing account. And that it was on us administrators to do something on that in conjunction with Matt, but I don't have anything to report because we never really touched base. But it's still on our to-do list.
Right, we've heard the executive director's report. Any questions? No? Hearing none, motion to accept?
Second.
Albert, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to new business, we have the annual meeting resolution.
Just as a point of reference, this is a resolution that the board adopts every year, concurrently with the presentation of your annual audit and management letter. So along with accepting the annual audit, the board takes this opportunity to attend to a bunch of annual housekeeping, for lack of a better term. The board readopts certain policies that you're required to revisit each year, your investment and your property disposition policies. The resolution also attends to electing board officers, establishing the committees, as we just mentioned, reappointing authority staff, and dealing with also the approval of the annual parish report, which has also been printed out by Danae, I think, here as well. So that's the premise. The discussion items to go through, you've already visited your audit and your management letter discussion. The open item for discussion before a kind of an omnibus vote would be the annual officer election. And the only point of clarification I'll offer there is Jeff is chair and appointed as chair, so that's not an elected position by the board, but the positions of vice chair, treasurer, and secretary are open for discussion and approval each year.
Can I just make a comment?
Mm-hmm.
So for full disclosure here, I have to admit that I have not had a chance to review the parish report. I mean, I have full confidence that it's in good order, but I just throw that out there as if we want to, if it would be possible to buy a little more time on that.
Yeah, if you want to pull that item, and as part of you approving your annual parish report, there's an annual exercise to review all of your active projects. Take a look and see if there's any outliers or anything that jumps out in terms of job production or job commitments or investment or compliance, that kind of thing. So if you want to park that one, it could be provisionally filed by Danae before the end of Monday. If you want to stay compliant with filing, but do your project review after that, or hold the whole thing and file it in April, entirely up to you.
I like having two options.
Okay.
But yeah, if it's okay if we pull, like, sort of formally approving the report until next month.
And file everything next month.
Mm.
You can do the provisional filing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a provisional filing is fine with me.
Yeah, once it's filed, it's in. And Danae can also preload the audit. I mean, that's being accepted, and all the other mission statement, all those other boxes to check can be attended to. But in terms of finalizing your project data, you'd keep your Paris window open until we revisit the report, I think, if that makes sense. Just technically, from your end, when you're hitting the button.
Yeah, I don't think I can submit, I could submit there's 4 different parts. Maybe I could submit the financial. That's what you want me to do, is submit the financial one and then not the other 3?
Is it because you don't
I don't
know,
really
you
care.
don't know that you're gonna be able to get through it, or it to be approved?
Well, I think just that Randy hasn't had the time at the
Yeah.
staff level to go through it and guide you through, notes on each project, that kind of
Right.
thing. I think you'd
Right.
probably want to drill down on the performance measures and
So,
give you an opportunity to react.
is it like taxes, you file an extension for another month, or?
Oh, I'm aware of some that are 2 years late. So
Wow.
we're talking about 20 days maybe, or
Okay.
25 days in terms of the next meeting cycle. So
Not terrible.
no one's going to be sending any bad boy letters or anything,
Okay,
If it were to go 6 months or a year, you'd be kind of at risk for filing and stuff like that. They do publish an annual kind of naughty list and say which authorities haven't hit their deadlines, but
okay.
if we're doing a month cycle, sometimes just for scheduling purposes, or even the audits, sometimes can get more intensive and take more time, and it pushes calendars a little bit, so.
Okay.
Do you have to verify all the numbers with each pilot, like employment and all that?
I think that
Yeah, I mean,
data's in there.
That data's in there, and it's and Danae has gathered all that, she's put the report together, but, again, just for, I haven't had a chance
Oh, okay.
to review it, and, I just probably think it's good practice
Right,
that I
yeah.
do that before you formally approve.
And to the extent that there's any outliers, part of that annual exercise is if you have a company leave town, or, you have a dramatic drop in employment or something like that, you would make note of it. And in some instances, it's a function of the economy, and it's not something that you would react to as a board, but sometimes there's instances where you have a business closure or an exit, you'd think about, bringing them in, and there you have a process for that. For termination and recapture of pilots, for example. You can stop them, if
Is that
there's
the case with the cookie factor?
Yeah, that one, was curtailed, was ended, voluntarily, though. We got them to exit early, because they didn't have the jobs there, and they were late on pilot payments, so they were, successfully convinced to wrap it up themselves, as opposed to you having to step in and put them, kind of call them on the carpet, if you will. But the annual review of the parish report, part of that is to, kind of like a health check in all your projects, and I think what Randy's suggesting is we're not ready to get that critique put on the table for you, so next month that would be part of the meeting schedule. What that means in terms of the resolution, audit, the governance committee. Yep, section 8, we would just, put a pin in that. We can adopt everything else, it's just the annual report itself is section 8, so we can table that one. Otherwise, the discussion would be on vice chair, treasurer, and secretary, and you'll have to forgive me, maybe Danae can recite who's holding those positions now, and if you want to rotate some chairs or keep things the same, that's up for discussion.
I know Ryan's the vice chair.
Doing a hell of a job.
I'm not sure, I heard the treasurer, but I feel like Sue Farrell was the secretary, and she's not here, so we're good.
Absent people often get volunteered, but it's entirely up to you.
All right, so do you guys want to start with vice chair then? For the election process?
We just motion to nominate somebody, right?
Yeah, if there's a discussion, if you want to stay there,
Yeah,
speak up, and we can
staying as
visit
vice
each one of
chair.
these, and if there's a consensus, just fill in the names. So it's up to you folks.
Motion to nominate Ryan?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, guys.
Congratulations.
Fine job.
You got that going for you.
Yeah, cool. One reelection, we're good to go. Treasurer. Anybody interested?
Albert. Albert does a great job, if you don't mind.
Choice now.
I'll do it.
All in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? All right. Congratulations. Secretary. Anyone interested?
You don't even have to do anything.
Fairly ceremonial.
Stephanie?
Sure.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
You are now a United States Marine.
Good luck.
Do we have motions or seconds for the last two? I think. I
For,
only
so
heard it for the
for
first.
Albert,
Yeah.
Latasha and me. Who said he, great, and I seconded.
Very informal, but,
Was there
yeah,
any
that works.
I think we- What was for yours? I didn't hear anything you were saying again.
I don't think we motion. Latasha made the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you.
The only other real items to focus on, before our global roll call, on the amended, organizational resolution is to revisit the Audit and Finance Committee and the Governance Committee. The Committee of the Whole is indicated for Audit and Finance, and that's the format that you just went through, prior to this meeting, to review the audit, which is largely what the Audit and Finance Committee is charged with. The Governance Committee is indicated as TBD. Randy indicated that usually it's kind of a quiet committee unless we have a mandated policy or a legal change come down from the state. But there seems to be an appetite for bandwidth to revisit some policies this year. So if you want to step out of the Committee of the Whole and designate 3 or 4 board members to really focus on that stuff.
I actually can designate.
Well, this is a suggestion by the board, and I guess, if folks want to get into policy making and the sausage making, as they say.
Well, I mean,
now's
you
the
know,
time.
again, particularly, it would be looking at the, uniform tax exempt policy.
I can't think of a better place to learn. So
Yeah, I'd like to
jump
hop
into that
in as
place.
well.
Okay, so there's
I'm
2.
volunteer.
Yeah, join us.
Out there, he sent around an email that was really interesting to me.
Right. Okay, so we've got,
Albert
Yeah,
and Ron.
yeah.
And Ryan.
And Ryan.
Right.
Ryan, yeah, okay,
There's always room enough.
great.
Okay.
So we can approve that resolution minus section 8.
Yeah, so, the motion to approve with the tabling of section 8.
I'll second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
The only other note, Danae, I have is the hard copy. I don't think it makes a difference. The hard copy I got has the LDC.
Yeah, that's why I flashed around that. I already did it online.
Did we agree to a governance?
Yeah, we agreed to a government, you got that, right?
Mike, Alex, Albert, and Ryan?
Yep.
Was it finance, what is?
That's still Committee of the Whole. right
Oh,
now.
okay, so I see, okay, all right, okay.
All right, so, good to move. Any old business? Hearing none. Financials?
February 28th, we had total assets of $1,158,247, with $733,688 sat in cash. We had total liabilities of $259,872, which left us with a fund balance of $898,355. No significant changes in the financial position. Lastly, we have the statement of activity. For the month of February, we had a surplus of $12,438. most significant source of revenue is our annual administration fees, and the audit expenses within our accounting fees.
Can you use the receivables?
So those were pilots that were billed in February that we did not receive payment for in February. Some of those we have received
Okay.
early March.
Oh, there's nobody that's over 30 days. Okay.
There any other questions for the financials? Hearing none, take a motion to accept.
I'll second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. With that, time for the adjournment.
Can I make a motion?
Motion?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. It is 11:07. We are gonna call to open the CRC meeting.
Not done yet.
Getting close. Getting close. I think we can approve the minutes. Yeah.
Who was there?
It says Jeff, Albert, Stephanie, Latasha, and me.
I should be listed as present for that.
That's,
Hmm.
no, that's last year's, finance
Oh, that's why.
audit.
I was looking at the wrong thing.
It-
Sorry.
It would be,
I was looking, I'm like, yeah, this doesn't seem right.
It would be the, I don't think we can.
right, because it's
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, all
right.
right. All right, and we're gonna move on to the executive director's report.
I don't have anything to report.
Any questions? Motion to accept? Second? Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, new business, annual meeting resolution.
So is this exactly the same as we just did? Paris?
Section 8, yes.
Gonna be a lot of the same on that.
Hmm?
Okay. So with that, you guys just wanna move to the annual officer elections?
Good.
All right, great. Jeff Otto locked in for chair for this one as well.
Pardon me?
Is Jeff Otto locked for the CRC?
No, that one is actually subject to vote, so, you know.
I like
keep
the
him on.
motion, Jeff.
Second. Get a big primary if you want.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Jeff. Vice chair? I'm fine doing that too.
Okay, so I make a motion.
Thank you. Seconded?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Appreciate it. Treasurer?
I'll do it.
Motion. Treasurer.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Congratulations. Secretary?
And appreciated.
Stephanie.
Yeah, I'll do.
Motion from Latasha?
Motion, yeah.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
I thought you were fixing your mouth to say no.
Oh, no, not at all. I'm sorry, I'm just writing
Yeah, I
notes.
looked like,
No,
gee,
no, I'm so-
one's good for me.
I don't wanna confuse things.
All right, we're gonna have to table section 8 again. Are there any other questions?
We need to do a governance committee.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Just for purposes of the CRC, I'm not sure if there's any significant reporting there in the parish report, other than the bonds that are outstanding for that entity. So I just, to deference to Randy, we might be able to wrap this one and get it filed before the end of the month if you feel it's appropriate. At this point, the performance measures on the reporting, it's basically just RPI's bonds. As long as they're not in default, I think you're in good shape.
I'll take that recommendation.
All right.
2 out of 3 files.
So then, we'll take a motion, or the governance committee. Thing we have to do. Same 4?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, perfect. Any other questions on the annual report? All right. Motion to accept? Seconded?
A second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. Moving on. Old business, old business. The Troy City Council Neighborhood Improvement Program funding request. This is what you asked me to question, right? The Neighborhood Improvement Program is an annual grant the city gives out to, different people, throughout the city to do whatever neighborhood improvements they're interested in doing. It's limited to $1,500. They work with the city clerk to use city-approved vendors. That way we know they're getting their money's worth. Done it for years. It's very successful. Happy to answer any questions about it.
I have a question. Who makes the determination how much is actually approved? Because I saw a requested amount and then the numbers of what was, didn't always match.
So there is, the council is Sue Steele, Tom Casey, and myself do the actual approval of the awarded amounts.
Are these home improvement projects? Or?
No.
No, so like, if there's flower pots or a community garden, you can go touch those up or create them. Last year, some people did banners in their communities. Some people did, touch-ups on the historical, historical landmark signs. I think a pitching mound, maybe, for one of the little leagues, got put in there. Yeah, pretty wide category.
Can we get another update as the, money is awarded?
Yeah. You're just asking me to update.
Yeah, just update, so, yes, they bought the benches, they installed the benches, or, or whatever, because sometimes there were some projects and we just didn't know what happened and didn't see anything, so.
Yeah, so there are a couple people who request the money, get awarded the money, don't use the money. The city clerk has them put the receipts out, and it's more of a refunding process, so if you don't use the money, it just goes back into the account to be reused.
So the city council gets the applications.
So it goes from, the application goes to the clerk organizes them, staples them together, then it comes before the subcommittee of the city council for approval and changes.
So what's the dollar amount that we're being requested for right now?
I'm not sure. That's a great question.
10,000?
10,000.
And it's and the city gives, city council, how much?
I think whatever's left in the account from last year, I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay.
I can get it to you.
We match.
Remember
We
did
didn't do it
year?
last year.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of bucks over here, so we didn't get a request last year, and it looks like they had enough to cover it from all the leftovers the previous year. I'm guessing.
Yeah, we had a significant amount, not enough to cut, to give everybody the full 1,500, but it was,
Enough to do them.
yeah, enough that everyone got some of the pie.
So theoretically, you could be carrying a few thousand on the city side, adding 7,000 to that pot to match the 10 that we,
I think we add the 10,000. I don't think it's the continuation carryover. I think it's
so you
an
have more than
additional.
10,000?
So I wouldn't know that until I touch base with the clerk to see who didn't spend their money last year.
Okay.
Ideally, there's no carryover, because everyone spends their money.
And to confirm, is there anyone that is not eligible? So is it, because you said anyone who wants to do projects in their neighborhood, so is there something that makes someone ineligible?
Yes, so you can't be purchasing tools. It needs to be somewhat renewable. It can't be like a one-time use. And it can't be on personal property. It has to be,
One-time use, like flowers, or like one-time use?
so the flower bed would be the idea of,
Okay.
you could reuse that times. Like if someone wanted to buy, it's predominantly tools, that's the thing. We ran into that issue with a bike repair. They wanted to buy tools to put on the bike repair. We're like, can't do that part. Any other questions? All right, looking for a motion then?
Well, I know we've been discussing in the past, like, what's the vision for CRC? And how do we determine who gets what? But maybe for the future, because we seem to get the same hands out all the time. But these are nice projects within the city, and I understand that.
So maybe it's a matter of advertising, so what is the outreach? Because like you said, if it's the same people coming every year, like, who is supposed to do the outreach, and how do other organizations know about what's available?
Mm-hmm.
The LDC's had, I mean, the ARPA program's a good example, and there's been other facade programs where they were grant-based. They have different purposes and powers and intents, but this board could have a targeted fund for a particular neighborhood or a particular kind of industry or not-for-profit, or set the program and then set a budget and then ask for proposals. You could put the question out that way, as opposed to just getting ad hoc requests from time to time. And that'll help you, I think, perhaps long-term, and we're at a point now where we're being a little more conservative in the amount every year because, we're waiting to get a new cash injection or a new revenue source soon, hopefully, and that's what fills the coffers here. So the governance committee, for example, could come up with a targeted program and a budget and kind of set the expectations so on a year-over-year basis what you have set aside for it, as opposed to embracing each one and trying to split the baby or however you're dealing with it. So it's just a thought.
Primary source of revenue is those bonds, right?
Bond financing, yeah, you get an administrative fee when they close, and there were some large ones, 7 to 10 years ago and they were IDA bonds that got refinanced and put through this entity. So if RPI has another debt restructuring coming up or a maturity, or if Sage or another organization that's a not-for-profit, the hospital is part of the Trinity systems. They generally don't have any debt associated locally. It's a national umbrella, so they typically don't come through the CRC for local financing. So really RPI and Sage are your targets. The Arts Center had a little bond once upon a time, but that's been paid off, the Arts Center of the Capital Region.
It would make sense if we knew that these did work and proceed and get completed. I'm sure for the city council as well.
Yeah, so a majority of them do get completed. It's an
How do you know?
outlier. because it gets carried over, so,
So we can get that information?
yeah, I just said I didn't have
Okay.
time to look
There
at
should
it.
have been a chart, it was in the first,
In the
when I
email.
sent it out last year, was it in this one too?
I saw an email, well, with,
But it was on the
Project.
agenda last month, I included a chart that Maria gave me that showed what they did last year, that's how I knew that we didn't fit in because,
They didn't have the
It was
money
just
for
all
it.
done.
Mhm.
I thought I copied and pasted everything into this agenda, but maybe the chart didn't make it in there.
we did receive it in our email, so.
Mhm.
That showed what projects they did and what, like how much went to each one. And, like how much it was approved for and then how much was paid out. Is that what you're asking? Like, did you know that they were carried out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
'Cause then we know
The
to
chart
look-
shows that it was awarded a certain amount and that a certain amount was paid, towards.
Is that this thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Requested official last
So-
column.
So is this, you're saying it's from 2023? We didn't do it last year.
She gave me what was from last year.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I noted that.
Okay.
I said, oh, we've come to find out we didn't contribute anything last year. I think there was all the change of executive directors, and if the request came in, it got lost.
Okay.
I'm guessing they just covered whatever was normally our share with what they had left over. and their
Okay,
funds.
to make it work.
Yeah,
Okay.
everybody.
So,
Go on.
I'm just, for clarity's sake, it sounds like this is a program that's run by the city council and we're just supporting it?
yeah,
And in the past,
ideally, hopefully.
we've cut a check for like a portion of it upfront, like 8,000. And because a while ago, they wouldn't use all the funds, so we would give them like 8,000 upfront. And then at the end, if they needed the rest of it, we would cut the check for the remaining 2,000. It sounds like in past years, we've used all the funds. That only happened in the very beginning when they started.
That does sound like a good approach.
Alright.
So it would be up to 10,000.
Yeah,
Because like now, so we don't really know what the projects online, you know what they are for 2025.
no, we haven't had that meeting yet, so I don't know what projects are
So I'm
upcoming.
confused then.
Alright, so, here,
Are we approving something that we don't even know what we're approving?
you're improving,
You're approving funding.
You're helping to finance the
don't know
neighborhood
what-
improvement program.
Toward potential projects that
Right.
ultimately
Neighborhood
the
improvement.
council approves or denies.
this is the
That's supported
timeline,
by the city council.
so. That's the timeline of it, so you start with press release,
Mhm.
then you put in the funding request,
Okay,
and then we review the funding request, and then the 3/29 is the deadline for applications to come in,
okay.
and then the committee would
March.
meet after that to review the applications that came in.
So I understand what Danae was saying. We could put a cap on the initial payment. But wouldn't it make more sense to come to us after other projects and know the funding?
Sure.
Well, then they won't know how much funding they're working with, like how many they can approve if they don't know if we're gonna contribute.
So we could do a funding request for, payment of up to $10,000,
Mm-hmm.
and then once we have the review, we could come to you and say, hey, these are the projects, we could review it on the CRC.
Okay. And you might come back and say, we didn't get any applications, or we got less than normal, and,
I know a few people have applied, because I have been pushing it pretty hard in my
Okay.
neighborhood,
okay,
because not very well represented last year.
okay.
Hoping to see more. Would you be more comfortable with that?
Yeah, it just clarifies for me, because I thought these were the projects that we were looking at. But that's not the case.
That's not coming back.
Okay.
So would there be a motion to provide the neighborhood improvement grant program with a payment up to $10,000?
I'd make a motion for that.
Motion, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then the Tech Valley Center of Gravity sponsorship request.
Yeah, I just checked out there, she's not here, I think she's sick, so.
For the presentation.
Last month we didn't have, yeah, she just had the packet or whatever.
I think we need more clarity on that one.
All right, so is there a motion to table? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Motion to table, seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Table to next meeting. Financials.
Our first report is the statement of financial position. At February 28th, we had total assets of $323,823, with $107,850 net cash. We had total liabilities of $6,294, with subsequent fund balance of $316,529. There's no significant changes to the statement of financial position. Lastly, we have the statement of activity. For the month of February, we ran a deficit of $2,727. Our only source of revenue was our interest earnings, and the largest expense was a repayment of a fee collected from RPI that was actually for the city. He inadvertently deposited in our account. We paid it back out to RPI.
All right, we've heard the financial report. Any questions? Motion to accept,
I'll second.
seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Last but not least, adjournment. Do I have a motion for that?
Motion.
Natasha, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you guys for coming.